Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 16, Daivasur Sampad Vibhag Yoga, the Divine and Demoniac Natures, Ataha Shodasho Adhyayaha. Text 16, 1-3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti Danam Damascha Yagyascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodhas Tyagah Shantirapayshunam Daya Bhutishvalo Luktvam Madhavam Virachapalam Tejaha Kshama Dhiti Shaucham Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Devi Abhijatasya Bharata.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion of honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature.
Text 16. Dambho darpo bhimanascha krodhaha parushameva cha ajnanam cha bhijatasya partha sampadamasurim.
Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to the demoniac nature, O son of Pritha.
Text 16.
Text 5.
Text 5. Devi sampad vimokshaya nibandhaya surimata mashuchaha sampadam devim abhijatosi pandava.
The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities.
Text 6. Dvabhuta sargalokesmin daiva suraiva cha daivo vistarasha prokta asuram parthame shrinu.
O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called the divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac.
Text 7. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasuraha na shocham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate.
Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truth is found in them.
Text 8. Asatyam apratishtham te jagatahur anishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kama haitukam.
They say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust.
Text 9. Etam drishtim avashtapya nashtamanolpabuddhayaha prabhavanti ugrakarmana kshayaya jagato hitaha.
Following such conclusions, the demoniac, who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world.
Text 10. Kamam ashritya dushpuram dambhamanamadanvitaha mohat grihitva sadgrahan pravartante shuchivrataha.
Taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent.
Text 11 to 12. Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashitaha kamopabhoga parama etavad iti nishchita atmapashashnibaddha kamabodhaparanaha ihante kayenathachayam.
They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification.
Text 13 to 15. Idam adya maya labdham imam prapsye manoratham idam astidam api me bhavishyati punardhanam aso maya hata shatru hanishye chaparanapi ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi आध्योऽभिजनवानस्मि कोऽन्योऽस्ति सदृशो मया यक्ष्ये दास्यामि मोदिष्य इति अज्ञानमोहितः.
The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give money to charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance.
Text 16. अनेकचित्तविभ्रान्ता मोहजालसमावृतः प्रसक्ता कामभोगेषु पतन्ति नरकेषु च.
Thus, perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into hell.
Text 17. Atmasambhavita stabdha dhanamana yajante nama yakyaiste dambhena vidhipurvakam.
Self complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations.
Text 18. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham cha samashitaha mam atma paradeheshu pradvishanto pyasupyaka.
Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion.
Text 19. Tanaham dvishata kruran संसारेषु नराधमान् क्षिपाम्यजस्रम् अशुभान् आसुरीष्वेव योनिषु.
Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast them into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life.
Text 20. Asurim yonimapana murha janmani janmani mam aprapyaiva kaunteya tato yanti adhamam gatim.
Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence.
Text 21. Trividham narakasyedam dwaram nasanamatmanaha kamaha krodhastatha lobhas tasmaditat trayam tyajet.
There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul.
Text 22. Etai vimuktaha kaunteya tamodvaraistibirnaraha acharityatmanaha shreyas tato yati param gatim.
The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination.
Text 23. Yaha shastra vidhim utsritya vartate kamakarataha nasa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na param gatim.
He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness, nor the supreme destination.
Text 24. Tasma shastram paramanam te karya karya vyavasthito gyatva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartumiharasi.
One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. Haribol.
Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Devasur Sampad Vibhag Yogo Nama Shodasho Adhyayaha. The Science the Bhaktivedanta translations to the 16th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the divine and demoniac natures.
Thank you very much, Vrinda Devi, for the wonderful Sanskrit recitation, and Sharad Prabhu for the wonderful English translations. Hare Krishna. So I'll share my screen. So welcome, devotees, to another chat session and reading and discussion of chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures. So as we traditionally do, we will recite the Mangala Charanam prayers first, and then we will discuss text number 6 in more detail. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashali Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So today's text number 16. Vau Bhuta Sarga Lokasmin Daiva Asura Evacha Daivo Vishtarasa Prokta Asuram Partha Me Shrinu. Word for word synonyms. Vau, two, Bhuta Sarga, created living beings. Loke, in this world. Asmin, this. Devaha, godly. Asuraha, demoniac. Eva, certainly. Cha, and. Deva, the divine. Vistarasaha, at great length. Proktaha, sa, said. Asuram, the demoniac. Partha, O son of Pritha. Me, from me. Shrinu, just hear. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna, having assured Arjuna that he was born with the divine qualities, is now describing the demoniac way. The conditioned living entities are divided into two classes in this world. Those who are born with divine qualities follow a regulated life, that is to say, they abide by the injunctions in scriptures and by the authorities. One should perform duties in the light of authoritative scripture. This mentality is called divine. One who does not follow the regulative principles as they are laid down in the scriptures and who acts according to his whims is called demoniac or asuric. There is no other criterion but obedience to the regulative principles of scriptures. It is mentioned in Vedic literature that both the demigods and the demons are born of the Prajapati. The only difference is that one class obeys the Vedic injunctions and the other does not. So the verse again, O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac. So this verse is the start of a lengthy description by the Lord of the qualities and the consciousness of the demoniac. And as we were going through the recitation of the entire chapter and the English translations, it's very apparent how Krishna is going at length to describe this mentality. So Srila Prabhupada, in the purport itself, starts to describe the distinction. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada sets out the main distinguishing factors within the divine and demoniac. But just to add to this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, there are other similar verses in the scriptures. In the Agni Purana, there's this verse which is quoted in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam 10th canto. And you see again here very similar words Dvau Bhuta Sarga Lokesmin Daiva Asura Evacha Vishnu Bhakti Paro Daiva Asurastad Vipar Yayaha. Very similar words. There are two kinds of created beings in this world, godly and demoniac. Those dedicated to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu are godly, and those opposed to such service are demoniac. So again, very, very simple distinctions drawn between the divine and the demoniac. The divine, they are dedicated to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu. And those who are opposed to such service, they are demoniac. We also see in the Sri Ishupanishad, text number 3, a similar type of description. Asurya namate loka adena tamasa vritaha tamste pretyabhir gachanti yeke chatma ano janaha. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the world of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. And Srila Prabhupada explains this verse in the purport. Prabhupada says, human life is distinguished from animal life due to its heavy responsibilities. Those who are cognizant of these responsibilities and who work in that spirit are called suras, godly persons. And those who are neglectful of these responsibilities and who have no information of them are called asuras, demons. Throughout the universe, there are only these two types of human being. In the Rig Veda, it is stated that the suras always aim at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu and act accordingly. Their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. Again, a very similar, that the godly persons, they are always cognizant of their responsibilities and they work in that spirit, meaning that they make the endeavor to find out what are the injunctions and the responsibilities as set out in the scripture. While the demons, they do not know, and neither do they want to make any attempts to know. Their starting point is to decry, to deny, to oppose the scriptures. So these are broad definitions, and we'll speak a bit more about how we can apply these definitions in our own contemporary life to understand in this world who are the divine and who are the demoniac personalities. Some interesting words used by the Lord in this word, in this verse. The word is Bhuta Sargo. Sargo we know means creation. And Bhuta means living entities. But here Krishna is saying, or Prabhupada is using, translating the words as created living beings. Now we know from the Bhagavad Gita, from the 2nd chapter, verse 20, Na jayate mriyate va kadachan, nayam budva bhavita vana bhuyaha, ajo nitya shashvato yam purano, na anyate anyamane sharire. This is what Krishna says in the 20th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, for the soul, there is never birth nor death. Nor having once been, does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So this may always almost seem like a contradiction to the verse, the phrase Bhuta Sarga. It may seem almost like a contradiction to text 20 of the Bhagavad Gita, where we understand that the soul is never created, is never born, but is ever existing. So we need to understand this from a different perspective. We can understand from this verse that this refers to the body. Created living beings refers to the body. So of those living entities who have taken a body, there are two classes, the divine and the demoniac. So that's the first interesting phrase. And then we just dig a bit deeper into what we've just discussed about the distinguishing factors. Srila Prabhupada, he singles out this point again. He says, those who are born with divine qualities, they follow a regulated life. That is to say, they abide by the injunctions in scriptures and by the authorities. One should perform duties in light of the authoritative scripture. And about the demoniac, one who does not follow the regulative principles as they are laid down in the scriptures and who acts according to his whims is called demoniac or asuric. So, firstly, regulated life. Divine life means regulated life in all aspects of living, in the way one eats, the way one acts, the way one speaks, in the way one deals with others, in the way one, every aspect performs relationships, there is a regulation. It's not whimsical. The opposite of regulated is whimsical. Whimsical means as I feel, I will do. This is the philosophy of modern life. We are free. We are individual. We should decide by ourselves what is right and what is wrong. And this is chaotic life because everything becomes relative. When such life is not regulated and such regulations are not dictated and directed by the scriptures, everything becomes relative. I may think eating meat is good. You may think eating meat is bad. So what works for you, that becomes your good. What works for me is my good. We don't have any right to dictate to other people what's right and what's good. Same with what we drink, what we eat, how we speak. This is modern civilization largely. There is no direction by the scriptures. It's completely denied. And what to speak about scriptures, authorities. People are very averse to follow any authority. Vedic culture means from the beginning, we accept the authority of our parents. We follow the authority of our parents. We do not question the authority of our parents. We follow the authority of our elders. We respect the authority of the elders. We follow the authority of Guru. And we respect the authority of Guru. One is always in Vedic culture or Vedic life. One is always in this mood that I am subservient to my authorities. I take guidance from my authorities. I take instructions from my authorities. And modern civilization, you see, authorities are looked down upon. Why should I follow someone else? I know what is good for me. Even parents, things have changed so much. We tell our children sometimes, Vrindavan, Devi, myself, when we were small, uh, no matter what, our parents were always right. Even if we felt that maybe they were not right, we would be quiet, and we would accept their authority in what they were saying. We would never argue. Now, the youth of today, being brought up in a culture and a civilization where they are being told to ignore the authorities. Sometimes they even challenge parents. And we have to remind them, life does not work like this. You respect your mother, you respect your father, you follow your authority. And in that consciousness from birth, you grow up following authorities. And this is what divine life is about. Before I go into that, Srila Prabhupada, in one conversation, he expressed the same sentiment. So Yashomati Nandan Prabhu is saying, this world fits into all the characteristics that are described in divine and demoniac natures. This world fits into all the demoniac qualities. Srila Prabhupada. Yes, because they are godless. Whole modern world is godless. They don't think of God very seriously. Everyone, they have described it as opiate. What is that? The opium of the people, Karandar. This is one famous philosopher. He says, religion is the opiate of the people. Opium is a drug. And when if you take opium, you get drug, you get deluded, and you act strangely. So, the modern philosophy is that religion is an opiate of the people. Those who follow religion, they are deluded. They've been drugged, they've been brainwashed. Srila Prabhupada, yes, they think those who are religious, they are simply wasting their time. Therefore, communist country, they are completely against religion. They cannot allow their people to waste their time. This is their philosophy. This is the condition of the world. The most populous country in the world today is China. And China is a communist country in which by law, religion and God is decried. If you are found to be following any type of religion or propagating anything that serves God, you are persecuted very, very severely. And the world today, China is becoming more and more and more powerful nation because they have been praised and promoted because of their demoniac culture, the culture of materialism. And in China, if you follow religion, you are persecuted. They would rather promote some human being as the supreme authority, but never God. This is the condition of the modern world. Just one little warning that sometimes there are some classes of people who follow the scriptures and they live a regulated life, but they deny the personality of Godhead. And in one morning walk in May 1973 in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada said, that is explained by that asatyam apratishtam te. Asatyam apratishtam te jagat ahur anishvaraha. These rascals, these demons, they say like that this asatya, this is untruth. There is no cause, there is no Ishvara. These are the demonic declarations. If Krishna is fact, his creation is fact, his energy is fact, why shall I say it's false? We do not say it's false. The Mayavadis say it is false. The Mayavadis, they say that this material world is false, asatyam. But the devotees, the divine personalities, just like if you have drawn a beautiful painting or you've created a beautiful sculptor, and I come to you and I say, this is false. How insulting would you find that to be? This material world is not false. It is simply temporary. It is not false. It's simply temporary. So there are a class of people that seem very divine, who follow the scriptures and live some sort of regulated life, but they deny the personality of Godhead. And we looked at in the previous verse where they, from the Agni Purana, there was slightly a different description. There it was said that those who are devoted to Vishnu, the personality Vishnu, they are divine. And anyone opposed towards worship of the personality of Vishnu, they are demoniac. So broadly, I won't say it discreetly, but we can see what's going on. Now, I want to come to what is called to today's session by coming to one interesting point. And it's a common thread. We see it emerge in this verse, and it's a common thread throughout the rest of the chapter. It would seem that Krishna is being inimical towards the demoniac. Krishna says, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. And then in text number 20, Krishna says, attaining repeated birth among the species of demonic life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. In one sense, this verse almost seems like the Christians, how they speak. You either go to heaven and you live there, or you go to hell and you live eternally in hell. You either surrender to Jesus and go to heaven, or you ignore Jesus and you live in hell eternally. I perpetually cast. Krishna uses the word perpetually cast. But actually, if one studies carefully, that is not the mode of Krishna. Sometimes as parents, we get fed up with our children using their phone. And we say something like, I'm going to take this phone away from you, and you're never going to see this phone again, ever. Ever. You're not going to see this phone ever. We get so angry with our children. But this, we know, it is just, a type of statement to emphasize, the severity of how we see the children's behavior. We do not really mean that. It's almost an expression. So Krishna's mood towards the demoniac is very interesting. I want to just take ourselves now to a very interesting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning of the 7th canto, the 1st chapter, Maharaj Parikshit raises a very interesting question to Shukadeva Goswami. And I'll just read, and I'm just conscious of the time now, but it's such an interesting subject matter. Let's see how much we can cover, but you can also continue and read this by yourself. So King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami. He said, my dear Brahmana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, being everyone's well-wisher, is equal and extremely dear to everyone. How then did he become partial like a common man for the sake of Indra and thus kill Indra's enemies? How can a person equal to everyone be partial to some and inimical towards others? So Maharaj Parikshit is raising an interesting question. There is evidence in the Srimad Bhagavatam, if one reads, that apparently the Lord has repeatedly taken the sides of the demigods, the side of Indra, and he's killed and he's cheated and he's worked against the demons. So Maharaj Parikshit is raising a question: how can a person equal to everyone be partial to some and inimical towards others? And then he says, Lord Vishnu himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the reservoir of all pleasure. Therefore, what benefit would he derive from siding with the demigods? What interest would he fulfill in this way? Since the Lord is transcendental, why should he fear the Asuras, and how could he be envious of them? O greatly fortunate and learned Brahmana, whether Narayan is partial or impartial has become a subject of great doubt. Kindly dispel my doubt with positive evidence that Narayan is always neutral and equal to everyone. Such a brilliant question as Maharaj Parikshit is asking in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, kindly dispel my doubt with positive evidence that Narayan is always neutral and equal to everyone. And the response of Shukadev Goswami is so wonderful, so wonderful. I don't know what to do now. We almost ran out of time.
Can we just do the response, Prabhuji?
Please carry on. It's
Carry
so
on,
wonderful.
Prabhuji, carry on.
Prabhuji.
We have no questions today. We just listen.
Yes.
Carry
on, Prabhuji.
Okay. There is okay. The response is quite lengthy, and let me go to the chapter and then I take you there. So interesting. So this is Canto 7, Chapter 1. So this Parikshit is asking this question. So I'll read some of it. We may not get through, but I'll just paraphrase the discussion. And obviously, most of you have Srimad Bhagavatam. You can go and read yourself. So this is how Shukadev Goswami responds. The great sage Sukadev Goswami said, "My dear king, you have put before me an excellent question. Discourses concerning the activities of the Lord, in which the glories of his devotees are found, are extremely pleasing to devotees. Such wonderful topics always counteract the miseries of the materialistic way of life. Therefore, great sages like Narada always speak from Srimad Bhagavatam, because it gives one the facility to hear and chant about the wonderful activities of the Lord. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva, then begin describing the topics concerning the activities of Lord Hari." So here you see he mentions Narada, and he's going to, because Parikshit Maharaj asked him to quote some evidence, he's going to give some very nice evidence from the activities of the sage Narada. Firstly, he starts off by explaining the nature of the Lord. Why we cannot ascribe, the so-called dualities of seeing good and bad to the Lord. The Lord sees everybody with a different vision. So that's the first wonderful reasons he gives, and I'll quickly read through this to explain this point. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is always transcendental to material qualities, and therefore he is called Nirguna, or without qualities. Because he is unborn, he does not have a material body to be subjected to attachment and hatred. So the first point he makes, attachment and hatred only comes for one who has a material body. The Lord does not have a material body, and therefore these dualities of attachment and hatred, they don't exist for the Lord. That's the first point. Always, although the Lord is always above material existence, through his spiritual potency, he appeared and acted like an ordinary human being, accepted duties and obligations, apparently like a conditioned soul. So to some person who is not in the know, because Lord Krishna appeared like a human being, they may think that he acts like a human being, but no. My dear King Parikshit, the material qualities Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun all belong to the material world, and they do not even touch the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These three gunas cannot act by increasing or decreasing simultaneously. And then he goes on to explain that when the quality of goodness is prominent, the sages and demigods flourish with the help of that quality, in which they are infused and surcharged by the Supreme Lord. Similarly, when the mode of passion is prominent, the demons flourish, and when ignorance is prominent, the yakshas and the rakshasas flourish. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart, fostering the reactions of Sattva Gun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. And then there's a brief description here about how the Lord enters the heart of all the living entities. And essentially what is being said here, according to one's mentality, Krishna does not hate anybody. But if you have the mentality that you want to be enemy of God, because you want that desire, then he will act in such a way. But from his side, there is no enemy. There is no friend. Everyone is equally. And then he goes on to quote one example from one event that took place during the Rajasuya sacrifice. And this is the evidence he quotes. Formerly, O king, when Maharaj Yudhishthir was performing the Rajasuya sacrifice, the great sage Narada, responding to his inquiry, recited historical facts showing the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always impartial, even when killing demons. In this regard, he gave a vivid example. So Shukadev Goswami, as all authorities do, he now cites an example where Narad Muni was once asked a very similar question to which Parikshit Maharaj is asking him. Maharaj Yudhishthir asked Narad Muni a very similar type of question. O king, at the Rajasuya sacrifice, Maharaj Yudhishthir, the son of Maharaj Pandu, personally saw Shishupal merge into the body of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Therefore, struck with wonder, he inquired about the reason for this from the great sage Narada, who was seated there. While he inquired, all the sages present also heard him ask the question. Maharaj Yudhishthir inquired, it is very wonderful that the demon Shishupal merged into the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, though extremely envious. This Sayujya Mukti is impossible to attain even for the great transcendentalists. How did the enemy of the Lord attain it? So yeah, Maharaj Parikshit is asking in a different context. How is it that the enemy of the Lord can attain the same position as a great transcendentalist? They want to merge into the Lord, and Shishupal was envious. How did he do that? Oh, great sage, we are all eager to know the cause of this mercy of the Lord. I have heard that formerly a king named Vena blasphemed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that all the Brahmanas consequently obliged him to go to hell. Shishupal should have been sent to hell. How did he merge into the Lord's existence? So the story of King Vena is described, I think it's in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, 4th canto. He was a very demoniac king. He was killed by the Brahmanas and he was sent to hell. But yeah, Shishupal, equally as bad as King Vena, he did not go to hell. He got merged into the Lord's existence. From the very beginning of his childhood, when he could not even speak properly, Shishupal, the most sinful son of Dhamagosha, began blaspheming the Lord, and he continued to be envious of Sri Krishna until death. Similarly, his brother Dantavakra continued the same habits. Although these two men, Shishupal and Dantavakra, repeatedly blasphemed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, Krishna, the Supreme Brahman, They were quite healthy. Indeed, their tongues were not attacked by white leprosy, nor did they enter the darkest regions of hellish life. We are most certainly surprised by this. How was it possible for Shishupal and Dantavakra, in the presence of many exalted persons, to enter very easily into the body of Krishna, whose nature is difficult to attain? This matter is undoubtedly very wonderful. Indeed, my intelligence has become disturbed, just as the flame of a candle is disturbed by a blowing wind. O Narada Muni, you know everything. Kindly let me know the cause of this wonderful event. So now we come back to Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami said, after hearing the request of Maharaj Yudhisthira, Narada Muni, the great powerful spiritual master who knew everything, was very pleased. Thus he repeated in the presence of everyone taking part in the yajna. The great sage Sri Naraji said, O king, blasphemy and praise, chastisement and respect are experienced because of ignorance. The body of the conditioned soul is planned by the Lord for suffering in the material world through the agency of the external energy. My dear king, the conditioned soul, being in the bodily concept of life, considers his body to be his self and considers everything in relationship with the body to be his. Because he has this wrong conception of life, he is subjected to dualities and praise and chastisement. So Narada is saying, the conditioned soul sees everything through the wrong lens. They see everything in the wrong way, right? Let me explain to you how the Lord sees things. Because of the bodily conception of life, the conditioned soul thinks that when the body is annihilated, the living being is annihilated. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the Supreme Controller, the Supersoul of all living entities. Because he has no material body, he has no false conception of I and mine. It is therefore incorrect to think that he feels pleasure or pain when blasphemed or offered prayers. This is impossible for him. Thus he has no enemy and no friend. When he chastises the demons, it is for their good. And when he accepts the prayers of the devotees, it is for their good. He is affected neither by praise nor by blasphemy. The Lord is all good. When he chastises the demons, when he speaks heavily against the demons and the demoniac nature, he does it from the perspective of good. Same like when he accepts the praise and the devotees, it's for their good. Therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, by fear or by affection or by lusty desire, by all of these or any of them, if a conditioned soul somehow or the other concentrates its mind upon the Lord, the result is the same. For the Lord, because of his blissful position, he is never affected by enmity or friendship. And then there's some other very, very, very nice verses. You can read that, but essentially the gist is that, Krishna sees things differently. The Lord is absolute. He is not in a material body. Whatever he does for the good or the benefit of the living entities. So in this chapter, we see the strong words of Lord Krishna. It is not done with any enmity, any bad. It is simply trying to help to reform those with the demoniac mentalities. And then we see this time and time again. The moment the living entity changes his mood. Lord Ram, when Vibhishan came and the others were saying, chase him away, Lord Ram said, Sakradeva Prapanoyas, that very famous verse, that if one even once just says, my Lord, from today I am yours. He says, from that time I accept him as mine and I give him protection. Even in the pastimes of Lord Ram, Lord Ram and Ravana, you can see the Lord's attitude towards Ravana. Even So many times he gave him opportunity. Change your ways, give back Sita, and everything is forgotten. Even after he had killed Ravana, his mood was so compassionate. So this is the mood of the Lord. As they say, you hate the sin, not the sinner. That is the mood of the Lord, and that is the mood of the Lord's devotees. So devotees, you can read the seventh canto, chapter 1 again. It's a beautiful canto explaining a very fundamental point, a question that many of us may have about the nature of the Lord. I'll stop here. I'll take any questions or comments that anyone may have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Mama.
Wonderful class. Thank you, Prabhuji. It just made me think of when Lord Ramchandra was walking in the forest and the thorns took shelter of him. And he wouldn't let the Lakshman take the thorns out because he said, they've taken my shelter. Even if my foot is bleeding, I can't let you take them out. And I suppose that's what you're saying is demoniac or divine. He gives shelter, but it's up to us whether we desire what we desire from him and how we surrender to him.
Yes. Yes, and that surrender, in one sense, it starts off by surrendering to the authorities, the representative of the Lord.
Yes.
Thank you for that
Thank you
wonderful
very much.
comment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, comments from anyone, reflections? Okay, it's beautiful, isn't it, the Bhagavad Gita? There's just so much in it. Today I felt so proud. Santosh Mataji, she has started her own chat session together with the help of Joli Mataji, explaining Bhagavad Gita to her family members in Delhi. And, you know, that's what we should all do. There are so many people today with demoniac mentalities. That's not the nature of the soul. The soul is by nature divine. It's just by the influence of this Kali Yuga and all of the agents of Kali, people have become apparently demoniac. So we have to preach this Bhagavad Gita extensively and help people to it just requires a simple change in consciousness. Instead of acting whimsically, acting according to their own means, they just have to turn, accept the authority of the Lord, the authority of the scriptures, and live a regulated life according to that. And the whole consciousness of the planet can change. But that is the work of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees, Srila Prabhupada's followers, to do that. And I was feeling so proud of Santosh Mataji today for what she's done. And hopefully with time, more of y'all will, from what you have learned, take up this mission of preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for attending my class today. Really nice of you to offer your blessings and best wishes. I feel very honored. Thank you very much again.
I just came for a few minutes, Mataji, because I felt so touched by what you were doing. It was really wonderful. So proud of you.
There is a saying, where there's a will, there is a way.
Yes.
So I'm just plodding on, Prabhuji, with everyone's, encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you, and wonderful Jolly Mataji supporting you too. Okay. All right, if there's no further questions or reflections or comments, I thank you for your attendance. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Nice class.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much,
Prabhuji.
Wonderful.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji.